Six Nations is 3 out of the 5 weeks done, folks. So we're more than halfway there. Now, yesterday I sat down with one of Planet Rugby's top journalists, James Weil. He's been a busy lad recently. He's been down in South Africa talking to one of the kind of top Springbok guys. I asked him a wee bit about that. He's been over to Bath to talk to Finn Russell not too long ago. Asked him about that and kind of how he was portrayed in the Netflix doco compared to the kind of real, actual person that James has met. Asked him a bit about England, about Ireland, about the battle for the wooden spoon, about what's going on with France. So yeah, cheers to James for giving me an hour of his time to chat some rugby. I'll put some time codes down in the description if there's any particular bits that you guys want to get to. But otherwise, yeah, here's me and James having a wee chat about some rugby. James Weil, rugby journalist extraordinaire. How are you going, mate? It's been a while.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I've missed our catch-ups, although we've been chatting on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been pretty hectic and unusual and almost slightly flat Six Nations, I think it's safe to say.
Well, didn't you start the Six Nations by heading to South Africa? Like, that's not where the games are being played, James. The South Africans aren't in the Six Nations just yet.
No, well, I went over there for a bit of a holiday. Also, very lucky to be hosted by the Blue Bulls. Had a lovely time there. Give a big shout out to Lunga, the comms manager at Blue Bulls, who looked after us royally and even allowed me to follow Racing and the Bulls onto the pitch with a video camera, which was rather nice. So
I remember you send me some shots on your WhatsApp of some pretty impressive stadium footage, which had me very envious, I must say.
What really surprised me about Loftus, having never worked there, I've missed Loftus on a number of occasions for reasons that I can't quite work out. But what did amaze me was the sheer heritage of Loftus, just how the celebration of the history of the Blue Bulls is all there for you to see. Massive honours boards everywhere you go. It's really so celebrated. And whilst it's an international stadium, it's also got the vibe of a proper clubhouse as well, in a very nice way. But yeah, absolutely lovely place. And I was well looked after by Lunga and the Blue Bulls team. Had a great time there. And then
I could tell you enjoyed yourself from the pictures anyway.
And then I grabbed an interview with the great Frans Malherbe up on his farm. Unfortunately,
he's got a farm, does he?
Yeah, he's got a big farm up in Stellenbosch. But Frans is very superstitious. He's asked me not to put him for the interview until he's fully fit again. He said, This is a real superstition I have. I don't want to be impressed until I'm fit, because that's just bad karma. But he's a lovely guy.
So you're just sitting on the story for now?
Yeah. It's more of a deep dive into his life and his love of farming. A couple of his best opponents that came up.
Nice.
Surprising answers there.
Well, that'll be one to look forward to, because he's genuinely one of my favorite players, because he's just the kind of guy who doesn't look like one of the world's premier athletes. Like, if you walked into a bar and just saw him having a few beers and some biltong, you wouldn't assume that, like, that's genuinely one of the best, sportsmen in the world. But he is. He's amazing.
Well, when you met, he is absolutely huge. Properly big. And he's just like this big, warm, cuddly teddy bear. Very nice guy. I'm told the portions at his barbecue can best be described as adequate.
I believe it.
But yeah. And I will reveal this. He did say he's technically the best prop he's faced at test level was our own Joe Marler.
Oh, really?
And I think Joe will take that one because I know how much he rates Frans Malherbe.
Yeah, I bet he does. No, I definitely look forward to that one. Didn't you have a bit of drama on your way out of the country, though?
Well, unfortunately, yeah. Top tip to all your watchers is don't use Waze and Google Maps. Don't follow them to the letter, because unfortunately, we all know that South Africa is as all countries do, some less presentable areas. And unfortunately, Waze took us through the Plains area. We were driving, literally going back to the airport, got a hire car, a little Mitsubishi. And as we drove up, there was almost some semi-roadblock with people messing around in the streets. And then from nowhere, window smashed with a brick, gun pointed in through the car. Guy ripped his arm on the broken glass and pulled the gun out, and pricked the brick up, smacked him in the face with him, and drove off. And he put his hand in to try and get the car keys, but it was one of those keyless cars. Otherwise, it could have been completely different. But it was absolutely terrifying. And my partner had a load of stitches and a broken arm, just fracture where the brick hit. But the nice bit was we got back to, so we get to the airport, and we're literally the last on an Airbus A380, right? And we're covered in blood, glass, and this, that, and the other. And we get to the plane, and they're like, they think we're drunk. They think we've been fighting in the airport.
No. Here I was thinking you were going to tell some story. They gave you all this kind of sympathy, but no, they just thought you were a couple of drunk Englishmen.
Yeah, but then when, because we take some photographs of the, obviously, for social media sympathy, but more so for insurance purposes. And we explained what had happened, and Sig, the cabin service director, tapped away on her iPad, and she said, right, she said, boys, if you'd like to make your way up to business class, I've got a couple of seats up there. They're next to the toilet. I can deal with that. And she said, I'll make sure there's a couple of stiff whiskies for you waiting at your seats, because you look like you need them. And I'll tell you what I did. But yeah, we got out of it alive, but it's been difficult. And I won't lie that I've had a lot of what-if moments in my own head.
Yeah, man, pretty bad. I mean, every country's got their own things, right? I've seen signs. I mean, it's not the same kind of, it's not the same concept, but in Australia, there's billboards up in town saying, turn around, Google Maps is sending you the wrong way. Like, don't follow your GPS. You need to go this way if you're going here, just because it sends people out into the outback onto, like, you know, dirt roads and whatnot, because it's just not made for that kind of thing. So sometimes that little bit of local knowledge, I mean, New Zealand's terrible for cars, not when you're in them, but if you leave them, and if there's any kind of valuables in them, like tourists, anything that looks touristy, rental cars and camper vans and stuff, they get targeted like mad. A lot of tourists sadly have a bad time when they come here with that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you know, you live and learn, and you know, I've lived in South Africa. I've been there 8 times. I lived there for 2 years, and I should have known better. So I blame myself, you know. But it was scary. Yeah, it was pretty scary.
Yeah, well, at least you guys had the whiskey. I won't say it's worth it, but at least you got that kind of bit of human sympathy and human connection at the end. Now, we better talk some rugby. You said the Six Nations. What's happened to France? I know France is like, you know, you've got a soft spot for the French, despite the fact that you're an Englishman. And, you know, I know a lot of these players are your kind of personal favorites, but they've just fallen off a cliff.
It's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, I was talking to Jared Wright, who we both know. We were talking to Jared on WhatsApp, obviously, What's Planet Rugby. And Jared and I were saying, like, France have become literally the worst cliche of themselves. You know, they have characterised their own worst cliche. And it's quite remarkable. I think there's a number of things going on. If you look at it from a structural perspective, I know that there's been huge ruptions behind the coaching team. I know, for what it's worth, Rafa Ibanez, there's been a bit of speculation as to why he's not been so visible. And the speculation has been a little bit incorrect, although I do believe there has been a bit of a fallout between him and Fabian. I also understand he's got a very ill child at the moment, and that's been predominantly the reason why he's not been doing the media commitments. But, you know, Laurent Lebitte, you've had Paul Gustard on your channel, and Guzzy will tell you that Laurent Lebitte, as a backs coach, an attack coach, he's up there with anybody in the world. He's incredibly highly thought of. And of course, he left France to take over the reins at Stade Francais, who are flying high at the top of the top 14 at the moment. And I think losing Lebitte has taken away a little bit of intellect from them, if intellect's the right word. I also think that defensive systems perhaps get tired, and maybe they need to freshen up what they're thinking defensively. And I also think, the elephant in the room is obviously, you lose a generational all-time great, arguably the greatest rugby player of all time, or certainly one of them, in Antoine Dupont. And I think I didn't anticipate Dupont's absence to hit them so hard, if I'm completely honest. The other thing that I did hear as well, anecdotally, was that when they didn't progress in the World Cup, a lot of the players took some time off and absolutely hit the party life a little bit large. And I don't think they look quite as fit. If you look at the profile of the games, it's been the last 20 when they struggled. And that suggests a fitness issue. What I will say is I fear for Jonathan Dante's continual for his Test career, because I think that there's been so many moments of indiscipline from him that this is just one too many. And I think there's something wrong tackle technique wise. We often talk about Owen Farrell maybe having to look at his tackle technique. I think the same with Dante. Dante's not a particularly tall guy, but he's incredibly upright when he's going into things. But on the plus side, the one thing I will say, I think Francois Cross, somebody that's we've had on Planet Rugby a number of times, and he's one of the nicest guys in the game. I think he has been the bloke that's held France together over the last 3 games. Yeah. I think he's been absolutely exceptional in every game he's played. But one man doesn't make a team. The last point to make about France is muddled thinking. And if you look at the match against Italy, Fabien Galthié had an incredible emotional reaction to what was going on the pitch in front of him, because to unload the bench in the way that he did, whilst he might argue that he wanted fresh legs on and so on and so forth, when you're down to 14 men, you want structure. And you want people that know each other's games inside out. And you want to keep those players on the pitch as long as possible, right? And I think that he saw a car crash emerging in front of him. He basically, a little bit of, how can I put it, emotional reaction to the situation. I'll sod it, I'll chuck the bench on. And actually, I'm not sure that worked. And I think that their bench policy of not going in with an extra back with Jalibert's leg injury, that really cost them as well, because they were forced. Ramos will probably play at 10 for the rest of the tournament, but they didn't quite have that backline rearrangement that you'd want. And then, of course, alongside Cross, another of my favourites, Charles Ollivon, was having a great game. And take Ollivon off after 60, after what he'd been doing, that just was bizarre. So I think there's a number of things, and I think they're being typically French at the moment. And it's incredibly disappointing to watch, because just what a high quality side now.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the kind of hangover from the World Cup, whether it was a literal kind of hangover if the guys have been out in the town, but also just like, are they kind of mentally scarred and just, not up for it after that massive disappointment at the World Cup? I also think that at times they become a little bit too attack focused. And although Peter Mavako has been one of the best players in the world at the moment, the guy's absolutely phenomenal. What he doesn't have is the set piece of Julien Marchand. And if you look, their line out has been struggling a little bit since they picked Mavaka. Marchand, when it comes to that set piece work and that ability over the ball, and that ability over the ball is a very, very key one, because for all the qualities of that incredible French back row, other than Aldrit, they're not natural players over the ball. Ollivon will win you a couple, Cross will win you a couple during a campaign, but their big over the ball threat has always been Marchand and Dante to a lesser extent. And I think they're really, really missing the solidity Marchand brings, and I think he'll be recalled. Well, I mean, the South Africans do that really well when they have Malcolm Marx fit. Over the ball, he's just a demon. He's so hard to move. So it's such
If Marchand and Mavaka had a love child, you get Malcolm Marx, which tells you how good Malcolm Marx is.
Yeah, there you go. What about your boys, England? I mean, they've only lost the one game, although the way I've seen some of the reaction to it, you would think England are suddenly the worst side on the planet. Is this just because expectations are high for Steve Borthwick's boys? They're expected to be better?
So I think that Steve Borthwick has an unenviable task, and that's the weight of public expectation. And I think that weight of public expectation sometimes prevents him. I'm choosing my words carefully here, because when I say prevents him, I also think he's conservative by nature. But I think we often talk in World Cup cycles, right? Excuse me. And we're in the first year of a World Cup cycle, which is the year where you've got pretty much the cleanest sheet of paper. And if you look at Borthwick's selection strategy, there's been a lot of old guard hanging on. He's shown a lot of loyalty to players, which is great. However, there's a very simple analogy. I've been thrilled with the form of Alex Mitchell. In the Premiership, people like George Furbank, who had a bit of a curate's egg of a game on Saturday, he did some incredibly good things, but he also made some basic errors. George Furbank, Tommy Freeman, Fraser Dingwall, these guys are smashing it in the Premiership, right? So when I've looked at Borthwick's squad selections, for the first two games, he picks Alex Mitchell at 9, he picks Fraser Dingwall at 12, and Tommy Freeman at 14. And then he picks George Ford at 10. Now, I don't get that, because if you're going to empower that Saints philosophy, then surely you want their playmaker, Finn Smith. And I'm not being funny, I've been watching Finn Smith this year, and whilst there's always been the X factor of Marcus Smith, when I watch Finn Smith, I think this guy's got the lot. And it's almost, it's almost like Carlos Spencer versus Dan Carter. That's probably a little bit over-egging the cake, but a lower level version of that. Carlos Spencer was always that great entertainer, that flair player, could tear a defence apart. Dan Carter came on and he could do a lot. And I think Finn Smith is that kind of player, that he's got an incredibly rounded all-round game. He's got gas, he's physical, he's 6'2", and I think it's time to give Finn Smith his chance. I think he could be a Test superstar. But unless you
do you think it's just because he wasn't experienced enough, or they just didn't trust him to run the show from 0 caps or whatever it was at?
It's having your comfort blankets, isn't it? It's comfort blankets. The same with Henry Slade. I mean, Henry Slade, 60 caps, and I've yet to see him put in what I would call a Test-winning performance as a centre. There's been one or two, but generally, the Henry Slade we see playing for Exeter Chiefs isn't the Henry Slade that we see playing for England. I think we've got a lot of problems going wrong. I think we've got a lot of things going wrong. I also think that the English public sometimes don't really understand. I mean, Ben Earl is being criticised. Oh, he's not an 8. You look at what Ben
He's
Earl's
been playing
done.
Incredible. He's been insanely good. Billy who? Because Ben Earl's been amazing.
He's not an 8. Why not? He's not big enough. Well, look what he does.
It doesn't matter about his size if you get the results.
And also,
I don't understand
that when you have a talent like Ben Earl, you want the ball in his hands as much as possible. And at 8, he'll get the ball more than he will at 7. So whilst I understand to a lesser or greater extent that, ideally you might want to play him at 7, to criticise him as an 8 is ridiculous.
Agree.
At the moment, he'd be in the top 3 8s in the world alongside Surveyor and Aldrich, I would have said.
Yeah, I'm a real stats guy, and I've been following his stats basically since the World Cup, and they've been literally incredible. Like the amount of meters he's been getting, the tackles he's been breaking, it's just, it's been like I was a little bit skeptical when they were playing him there last year, but once you saw the results, he's fine.
He's an incredibly dynamic player. But look, where England are at the moment, I think that in English rugby, You made the comparison before we came on air about Warren Gatland and Warren Gatland having a little bit more of a breathing space to rip it up and start again. I think it's a way to public expectation combined with a bit of Borthwick's own conservatism. I also think, in fairness, the players are trying to embrace the so-called Felix Jones defence system. Now, I will just touch upon this because, Felix Jones, people are conflating this a little bit. Felix Jones is by nature an attack coach, not a defence coach. That's the first thing we have to take in. The second thing is the defensive system he's implementing isn't Felix Jones designed. It is very much Jacques Nienaber designed. It is Jacques' defensive system. The third thing that you talk about on this one is in order to implement it well, there's a little bit of bedding down to do because the rush is so fast. And it also relies upon a narrow rush with the pendulum coming round and making one out on the open side. So your pendulum moves across and the last man in there comes in and joins in the 13-14. When you're blitzing at the space that you do, to defend north to south is easy. But to defend east to west is rather more difficult because you're moving at such pace that your natural momentum allows people to sidestep you. And that's happened to England a number of times when people are rushed up. And players like Sione Pilotto, he cracked it by running flat to the line and popping. And the players were rushing at such a pace that they just didn't have time to change direction. So that will sort itself out as the players become accustomed to the system, and they will learn that north-south pace is one thing, but you've also got to have the agility east-west in the defensive line. And I'm not sure that's quite yet matured. Now, I don't have a major problem with that because I think it is an exciting system. I think it is potentially match-winning. But when you play against sides like Scotland or even Italy, who have a phenomenal backline at the moment. And I'll just say that there aren't many nations, even Southern Hemisphere nations, that have got centres of the quality of Nacho Brex and Thomas Melancello. I mean, those two are as good as centres as you'll see anywhere. And then Monty Ioane and Capuazzo, they've got a generational backline for Italy at the moment. But when you played Italy and Scotland, you're playing against two sides that thrive on chaos in the back line, right? And what you're doing is you're putting them in their element by using a defensive system that is designed to create chaos. So consequently, I think there is an issue with England implementing chaos, then not themselves being able to react or adapt to that chaos itself.
It might just be time. I mean, I remember when the South Africans, when Rassie took over, and like Mapimpi kept getting criticised for kind of rushing up and sometimes getting beaten, but that's his job. That's the system. And when they can shut down the play, nobody's got any space to do anything. So it took them a while to get it. Yeah, exactly. So,
and there is a thing about that, right? That statos, they go through things and say, "Oh, so and so's missed 8 tackles," right? People have to realise that the more tackles you attempt, the more you're likely to miss. So the people with the highest tackle counts often have got the most missed tackles. And if you just take a very simple example of I think Damien Dialende would be a really good example for South Africa. Dialende will really lead that rush at times in Creel. And occasionally they get sidestepped and they'll miss a few tackles. But that system, you then have the man in the boot coming around, normally Khaleesi, Faf de Klerk, who then just picks it up because they've slowed that man at the line. Yeah, they've missed the tackle. They might have got half a hand on him or whatever. But the boot system is working with the man in the boot coming across, banging them in that same wave of defence. And I think the system will work. However, as you say, it takes a bit of bedding in, and you're not going to get results overnight. But I do think the other thing I was going to say to you is New Zealand, South Africa, England have resources, right? And sometimes you have to look at test players and say, look, he's a really good test player. But actually, I don't need really good, right? I need exceptional. Now, there's been a number of All Blacks that have fallen foul of that over the years, where you've looked and you think, crikey, that guy's a high-quality player. But I'm sorry, he's not All Black level, right? And I think that with some of the England players that have got 20, 30, 40, and even 50 caps, you've got to say, look, they've reached their peak. And actually, whilst they're a very solid player in all of that, if we're going to win things, we need to find the exceptional test match animal, right? And I'm not going to name but there's a couple of All Blacks that I can think of that I would put in that category over the years. So, and the All Blacks are brutal with it. They'll just say, "Nah, you're not good enough to be an All Black. We'll try somebody else."
Is there a little bit of conservatism sometimes with the English selection? Because there's a few guys who kind of get into that like freakish athlete range. Like, I mean, Sam Simmons was one that I felt like they didn't really get the best out of him. You know, kind of when he was playing for Exeter at his peak, he was virtually unstoppable from kind of 5 meters out. But as England caps for a while were few and far between.
The thing is with Sam Simmons, if you looked at what Exeter did to Exeter picked a side around Sam Simmons. So when they picked a back row, they had 2 6'5", 6 and 7s playing alongside him. 2 what you call traditional 6s or hybrid locks, right? Massive guys, Dave Ewers, Jacques Vermeulen, those sorts of boys. And that allows Simmons to play almost as a hybrid 7-8. So he's doing the work around the park of a 7. Right, he's your jackler, your grip player, and so on and so forth. But you're also using his gas off the back of the scrum. The Ben Hill syndrome applies here. So, you know, if you want to pick players like Sam Simmons, you pick 2 absolute hooligans either side of him. You know, some real monsters. And England could have done that with Courtney Laws. Lewis Ludlam would have worked perfectly with Sam Simmons.
Yeah.
You know, Lewis. Yeah, it's such a shame he's been injured this year.
He's a machine. He's an absolute machine.
So underrated. And for some reason, again, the player in the English public have never quite embraced what he's done in England shirt. But what I will tell you is if you look at the Premiership stats time and time again, there are fewer players that make more yards through contact than Lewis Ludlam. His ability through contact, I think there's only Ruan Ackerman at the moment that make that tradition over the last year or so has made more meters through contact. So look, I think England are in a difficult situation. I think if I was Steve Borthwick, I would throw caution to the wind. If Alex Mitchell is fit, which I believe he is, I would be looking to have a Saints halfback combination for sure. I'd even bring Fraser Dingwall back in, move Ollie Lawrence out 1. And then take it from there. And interestingly, you know, Freddie Stewart, that was a pretty daring thing for Steve to drop Freddie Stewart, as he's been outstanding. But again, you have to think about how you would use Freddie Stewart. And if you are going to have a bit of a kicking game, and if you're playing Alex Mitchell, although he's a running threat, he also has one of the best kicking games of scrum half in the Prem. Finn Smith, great kicking game as well. So if you want to play Furbank at 15, which makes a lot of sense for Smith because Furbank often stands at 10 for Saints, then play Freddie Stewart on the wing where he will create havoc in the aerial battle. That's what you want. And you look, you know, I know it's not a fashionable thing to say, but the channels in Test Rugby are where the contestables take place. And if you've got the best man in the air in the world, which Freddie Stewart is, why not put him there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the All Blacks did it for a while. They played Geordie Barrett up there because he's such a big human and he can get up there. I mean, the Springboks wingers haven't been that huge, but they're, you know, good at jumping up, even if they don't catch the ball, slap the thing back. So, yeah, if it's a 50-50.
The one thing I will say, just very, very, very lastly, is on the English back row, I think we need to get a little bit more balance in there and a bit of size. And I think for me, getting George Martin on the blindside flank or Bonamaro or Ollie Chesham, doesn't matter which one really. You want your 2 best scrummagers. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Chandler Cunningham South, you know, we had England put Richard Hill, who works within the coaching team, the great Richard Hill, up a couple of weeks ago at Penny Hill Park, and he was talking openly about Chandler Cunningham South, and he said when I watched him for 30 minutes, and I was already on the phone saying this guy's a Test match player, and he was 18. He said I'd never seen anybody quite of that physical stature as an 18-year-old in an English setup. And when you meet Cunningham South, I mean, he's a good 6'4", 6'5", absolutely stacked, and he's only 20. I mean, he's a ridiculous talent.
Yeah, still got a lot of room to grow, hey?
Yeah, so although we discussed Earl as an 8, you know, if you're going to bring Cunningham South in, and let's be honest about this, like, again, fans' perceptions of a scrum, there is no reason why you cannot vary your 6, 7, and 8 in terms of their scrummaging positions to suit the situation you're in. So if you've got, you know, that lovely scrum that takes place between the 10 and the 22 that's on the left-hand side of the pitch, it's one of the best attacking scrums in the world, you might want your Ben Earl to get gas off the back. Equally, if you're 5 metres out, you might want to change it up, although Ben Earl did brilliantly against Wales with his try. With Sam Underhill playing at second row, I have to tell you that one.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. Yeah, it was a depowered scrum, but they still managed to just pick it up and go. Can they stop this Irish Juggernaut in a week's time?
Do you know what? I'll take my hat off to Ireland. The way they've reacted to another quarterfinal defeat is quite remarkable. I'm looking at their side, and look, this puts in perspective. They dropped James Ryan, and they found somebody better than him. James Ryan was my nailed-on Lions captain last year. You know, I was thinking, God. When La Rochelle played Leinster, Ryan was carried off after 23 minutes, and Leinster fell apart. Now they got Joe. I mean, now Joe McCarthy's on the scene, and it's like, oh my God, this guy's something else. And they just keep, you know, Carmen Nash on the wing. They just produced another one, and the young 10. I mean, it's like Johnny Sexton's not been away. Jack Carty, I mean, he's just
it seems to be a production line at the moment. You mentioned the kind of 4-year cycle earlier, and we've obviously seen Wales just kind of burn the house down and build it up again. Gatland's been very open about the fact that, you know, he's not playing to win now. He's winning. He's planning to win in kind of 4 years. But Ireland don't seem to be buying into the 4-year cycle. Like a lot of the guys that Andy Farrell is picking, you know, there's a lot of 30 plus. I mean, Peter O'Mahony's still there. Cian Healy's still there. He's not, you know, done a whole kind of burn the house down.
I think, look, Ireland. That's a really good point. I think there is things taking place. I'll give you a good example. You know, Finlay Bealham coming through. You know, you would argue at the moment Bealham's the form tight head of the Northern Hemisphere. And, you know, it would be very interesting to see for the England game if Bealham's fit, because he was actually unfit for the last game. Between him and Ty Furlong, it's not a done deal anymore. And Ty Furlong's an all-time great of Irish rugby. Now, Finlay Bealham's putting pressure on. You've got McCarthy coming through. You've got the I've forgotten the young scrum half's name that's backing Gibson Park up. Incidentally, New Zealand's greatest ever export. It's even better than New Zealand lamb. Jamison Gibson Park. Isn't that?
He's amazing, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's funny because he used to play for the Blues here in Super Rugby, and if you'd told me you'd look at him in a few years, Mark, and be like, "Oh, I wish he hadn't left New Zealand," I would have thought, "Nah, he's not going to be an All Black." But they do something with these guys when they go overseas, and they elevate their game. He's incredible.
Well, also, I mean, he's got quite an odd physical appearance as well. You know, he's a little bit, and if I found out that he lived somewhere in a cave in Lord of the Rings or in Harry Potter, I wouldn't at all be surprised. You know what I mean? You got that beard and the look. But I love him, and what he is amazing at is speed of ruck ball. And if you look at Ireland consistently, they have so many people running off the carrier, left and right. They have options. You go back to England, and you know, just talk about it. One point I'll say about England against Scotland, to watch them open up Scotland with that brilliant move in the first half, in the first 5 minutes of the game, then to watch 75 minutes of Ellis Genge playing at outside half. and just running one-out runners with no support from static positions. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just don't
it's pretty
understand.
frustrating.
You know, if you want Ellis Jones to play it, fly off, then pick him there. But don't put him there, you know. And I think sometimes there is something within the England psyche that wants them to live up to hype or live up to type and bully the opposition because what's big brawling forwards. And actually, one of these days we've got to work out that there's other ways of playing rugby, but it hasn't really happened in 180 years, so I don't know why it would happen now.
Not holding your breath on that. Well, what have you made of the Scots?
You got to love them. They've been fantastic. I mean, you know, against France, I can understand their frustrations. What I would say is Duran van der Merwe was clearly offside in that move when he picked up the loose ball. So what comes around goes around. And for me, I think Sione Tuipulotu was very, very lucky not to get at least a yellow card when he cleared out Aldrit onto his own player's boot. Complete no arms clear out, which was identical to one Antonio was carded for. But you kind of don't miss the size of Antonio doing it.
He's a bit more conspicuous.
Little Sione goes and he gets away with it. So you know, whilst I think there was a bit of an injustice, and I think with that one we argued, it'll be like it is their Mark Cueto 2007 moment for the Scots. But I think Scotland, and I mean, you know, Chris Patterson, we sent Chris Patterson your way last week.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Chris a lot before the game, and it is about the Scottish forwards. If the Scottish forwards can compete, then the Scots have got backs to do anything.
The backs have no problems. I mean, that backline is up there with any backline, right?
Oh, you know, you would argue. I think there is a comfortable argument to say that they've got the best backline in the world at the moment. You know, if you look at what they've got, 10 world class, 12 world class.
Some people just don't like them, though. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but in the Netflix series, Finn Russell made quite a prominent. The first episode, like each episode, they kind of, they had a couple of characters, and then the first episode, it was very much Finn Russell is the maverick, and Gregor Townsend is like the schoolmaster, and they are kind of butting heads. And Finn Russell thinks he's Lionel Messi, which he says kind of tongue in cheek, but they make him out to be I don't want to say a bit of a prick, but they make him out to be a bit arrogant and loves himself, kind of thing, as my dad would say. Some people don't like him.
So I think there's a little bit of Netflix.
Dramatization
around that. I'll tell you a little anecdote about Finn. So when the RFU presented the new proposal for the first and second tier of English rugby moving forward towards the end of January, Bath put Finn up for an interview on the same day, which was poor timing from them. So you can imagine the majority of English journalists are with the RFU all morning, and then have got this presser in Bath. And the weather was torrential. It was raining cats. I mean, it was biblical, the rain. And I drove from Twickenham to Bath, which is about a 2-hour drive down the M4.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know the geography. And it was an horrendous drive. We get to Bath.
Like scary drive?
Yeah, scary. Literally scary.
Wow.
And we get to Bath, and there was only 4 of us that made the trip. And Finn was there. And he came up into this little, it's called the President's Room in Bath. And he came up with a Tesco's carrier bag. And he goes, all right, boys, thanks ever so much for coming. Put a big box of Millionaire's shortbread and croissants on the table. He goes, I popped to Tesco's and got you those because I thought you'd be bloody hungry. And that's Finn Russell, right? He then sat there and we talked to him for an hour, where he was so beyond humble, talking about, I'm not nowhere near the complete player. There's bits in my game. And one of the things he always says is if my skill set matched my thinking on a rugby pitch, I'd be great, but it doesn't. And what I need to do is get my skills to work at the same level as my eyes do, because I understand the game. but yet I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And then he'll be talking about, you'll ask him about his game. He'll tell you all about Ben Spencer, Max Ajomo, Ollie Lawrence. What about your game, Finn? Well, it's having these guys around me. He's a top bloke. Absolutely lovely guy. Nothing like the Netflix series is trying to portray him. And he's just absolutely exceptionally charming, really. Very, very humble.
So don't believe everything you see on reality TV is the message here.
No. Well, he did. His humour is actually outstanding, and he was talking about Bath, and he says, he said the thing is at Bath, if you want anything done, if you want to know anything about Bath, you just ask Tom Dunn at the Bath Hooker.
Yeah.
And he goes, whatever I need, it's Tom Dunn sorts it for me. I asked him the other day, I said, look, I've just had my garage converted. I've got a garage door spare. What should I do with it? He goes, I'll have it. And he said, what does Tom Dunn need with a double garage door? He said, but he turned up in his truck, picked it up, put it on the back, drove off. And I still don't know what he's done with my garage door, but he was desperate for it. And, I've just got a lot of time for the bloke. And I also have a lot of time for what Bath are doing in the way they're playing rugby at the moment. I think they're exceptional.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good to hear. I mean, I kind of figured that they were playing the whole, the drama side of things up, which is, I guess, what their job is when they're making a reality TV series. But hey, it is what it is. Wales, are they in a genuine battle for the spoon at the moment, do you think, or are they gonna not get that kind of dishonorable position?
Look, I think it's a difficult one. Do they play Italy in round 4 or 5?
I have the fixtures up. Their next game is against France, and then they've got Italy the final week at home.
Yeah, I think
both their next games are at home.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm at the France game. I'm looking forward to that, and I think France. Put it this way. Here's an observation for you. I would, if I were Wales at the moment, I'd be more fearful of Italy than I would be of France, or I would believe I've got more of a chance against France than
the way they're
playing. I would be fearful of Italy. But it goes back to what you and I were saying before we started filming. Italy at the moment, generational back division. And you talk about centre partnerships. Nacho Breck's one of my favourite players. I mean, the guy's just so. You look at his number of interventions in a game; they are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And he is the glue in that Italian backline. Melancalo, absolutely exceptional talent, enormous bloke, and this guy's going to be a world-class centre.
Yeah, still very young.
Yeah, and Garbisi, despite his missed kick attempt, is an outstanding fly half. Monty Ioane in the back line, lethal with ball in hand. Maybe not the best in the air. That's probably his Achilles heel. And Ange Capuozzo, again, a player that people queue up to go and see, and rightly so. So I think with Italy have got probably a similar scenario to Scotland. If their forwards compete, which they did against France, then they stay in the game. And then they can beat anybody. I look at where Wales are at the moment. I think Wales have got a competitive back five in the pack. Raffel and Wainwright are playing out the socks. And honestly, without Tommy Raffel, Wales would be struggling big time.
He's been outstanding, hasn't he? He's just been on another level. I mean, when they had Jack Morgan injured, you thought, oh man, maybe Wales will lose a step here, but nah, not at all, really. I mean, different kind of player, but still exceptional.
I think he's made from elastic. Some of the positions he gets into to Jackal are ridiculous. It's just like, how do you do that? If he was a superhero, he'd be Mr. Elastic. Aaron Wainwright, I think, has been a real unsung hero.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's been exceptional. And again, he's not the biggest age. He's 6'2". Came to rugby very late. Didn't start playing until he was 17 or 18. He played centre half, big football player. And he moved. And I also, funny enough, I was talking to Adam Jones before the start of the championship about Alex Mann, the Cardiff
Oh, yeah.
blindside flank. And Bond was saying just how abrasive he was in the Quins game against Cardiff. So they've got a good back five of the pack. David Jenkins, Adam Beard, Will Rowlands, 3 top quality locks. Front row, a little bit of a problem. And I also think when Elliot D goes off, they lose an edge in the line out in terms of their throwing. But they have no control whatsoever at 10. They are struggling so much at 10. It's unbelievable. Costello, not sure he's a long-term opportunity. Johan Lloyd's a fullback. He's certainly not a test fly half. They don't know who their best 9 is. They've got 3 outstanding 9s. Their centres really aren't offering them anything, and they seem to be lacking gas in the back 3, although Cam Winnett has been very good.
He looks pretty comfortable. Like, you wouldn't say he's been, setting the world alight, but in a team which has not won a game, he's still looked, he's looked comfortable at the back. He's been running the ball back into some traffic with some confidence, which is encouraging anyway.
Yeah, you wonder if he's got the physicality for it. He reminds me a little bit of Josh Hodge, the Exeter fullback, who was ripping up for England Day on Sunday, which I went to. But yeah, look, Wales, having seen a lot of Welsh rugby recently, the issue that I think they face is that they don't have much coming through that's better than what they're picking, with the possible exception of maybe bringing Mason Grady into the centres. I think they're struggling a little bit. I was surprised, for what it's worth, at how far they've pushed a couple of sides, including Scotland. But if I were Wales, I'd be focusing on the France game, and I'd be scared poolless at the Italy game.
The Italians are going to be very fired up, aren't they?
Yeah, they will be. And I think that's great for the game. Yeah, people have questioned Italy's place in the Six Nations. Yet this year they've been outstanding. Yeah, they've drawn with France. They could have beaten. They certainly gave England a real scare in the second half. And if you look, just don't forget this. France, that same French side, beat that same Italian side 60-odd.
Yeah. Not that long ago.
3 months ago.
That's right. Well, I'm really optimistic with Quesada now that he's taken over. I mean, Kieran Crowley's been in the coaching scene for a long time with a bunch of different sides, and I'm fond of him. But I mean, Quesada, when he was over here in Super Rugby with the Jaguares, they got all the way to the final against the Crusaders. He elevated a team which had been lackluster in Super Rugby because it was full of Puma's stars, and they were very average. And then he had a really a team playing a really smart rugby, smart kicking game, focusing on their strengths. So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic with what he can do with the Italians as well.
Well, I think the one thing I will say, you look at Italy and their players are coming to the party. Danilo Fischetti, I think, is he's young. But I think he's developing into a world-class prop. Nicotera,
he's great.
Has got one of the best tackle counts of the Six Nations this year. And whilst Rutzer doesn't do a lot around the park in terms of a line-out supply of ball, the guy is absolutely outstanding. And also, you've got to remember, against France, they're missing 2 of their key back row players as well. Seb Negri is probably their biggest carrier. So, yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, looking forward to England. It's very rare that England go into a game when they have a shot to nothing, and they really do against Ireland. It could be we get pumped by 20 or 30. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think selection is going to be key. I think you will see. You'll see Dan Cole and Marler start. I think they have to against our Irish front row. I hope we beef the back row up, and I hope Finn Smith is given a chance at 10 because he really deserves it. This guy's exceptional.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But yeah, my heart tells me that it's probably not gonna. It's not gonna be. My head maybe tells me it's not gonna be that kind of caution to the wind approach. But yeah, we will see. Stranger things have happened. So I mean, is it pretty much Ireland a lock in for the Slam? Do you think?
I can't see that they can do anything else. I mean, they really are that good. Their movement off the ball, and you know, people often talk about attack coaches, right? Who you know, who are the great attack coaches of the world, and the one name that never really crops up is Mike Catt. What he does with that Irish attack is outstanding. Now, I know a lot of it was originally engineered by Stuart Lancaster through the Leinster connection, but what Catt does in terms of dummy lines and running lines is absolutely exceptional. And also, what I will say, and I don't mean to, this is not a catty statement. Actually, I can't say that. I've just big Mike Catt up. It's not a bitchy statement, but I've never seen a side that push, other than the All Blacks, ironically, that are so good at pushing innocent interventions that are totally illegal in and around the rucks, the defence, and so on and so forth. There's a beautiful moment the other day in the game on Saturday where Joe McCarthy goes charging into the Welsh defence, stands there, oh, sorry, and then retreats, but is literally in 1 second taken out two defenders. He's just caused enough chaos that those defenders can't do their job. And you'll see them do this at Rugby. They'll come around, come on. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. Now that is what you and I would call world-class shithousery.
Yeah.
And Ireland are so good at it. And yeah, it irritates the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But the back row forward that I once was in me cannot help but admire what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I used to have that perfectly with Richie McCaw because he was playing for the Crusaders against my Blues, and I'd be swearing at the TV, how's the ref letting him get away with this? And then when he played for the All Blacks, I like this. He's world class.
My image of 80s and 90s rugby, right, is England igniting one of their rare backline moves against the All Blacks. Very, very rare. And then suddenly you see Sean Fitzpatrick trotting back with his arms in the air and the ball bouncing off his chest. He was absolutely brilliant at it. Lazy running of the highest order, but it was done so innocently, but so deliberately. And I used to hate him for it. It was like, he can't do that. And I think Etibet did it in the World Cup as well a couple of times.
Yeah, well, you play to what you can get away with, basically, don't you?
You really do. You really do. And look, we live in a situation. I mean, look, you and I both track social media, and the amount of outrage from various fan groups over this decision, that decision. It's a really simple. You know, there's a couple of things that we need to take out of rugby, and that is one. If you rely upon one close call in a game of rugby, what the hell were you doing for the other 79 minutes of the game? That's one.
Yeah.
The second thing is we have to accept and understand the concept of materialism. So if you're outside centre in the wide channel is a foot offside momentarily, that has no material effect on the game, right? So this is about materialism and interpretation. And I think that, you know, the enlightened amongst us, you know, the ones of us who have played and coached a little bit, you can look at any breakdown situation and I can find 5 or 6 offences, right?
Yeah,
but which of those offences are material?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, often I hear people talking about how they just want referees to kind of enforce the laws. And I don't know if you've seen the Rugby Pass or World Rugby TV, whatever, they did a whistleblowers documentary following the World Cup refs. And I think it was Luke Pearce that said, basically, if we blew everything that we saw, you just wouldn't have a game of rugby. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like, whilst we say that we want, or some people say they want, like, you know, consistency and the refs to enforce every law, actually, sometimes it's the ones like Nigel Owens who gets more popular because he's he kind of understands the flow of the game, when to let things go, when to just give them a verbal warning, when to tell them to settle down, and when to actually blow the whistle. It's a tough job.
Mark, there's a really good example of this the weekend. Christoph Ridley. I thought he had an absolutely outstanding game.
Great game. First game as well, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Six Nations until the last minute, where I have a bit of sympathy with the Italians who are saying that the penalty kick should have been retaken, and I think that given the situation, it should have been. And Garbisi has taken it in good spirit. He's been very, very sporting about the situation. But people saying, "Oh, Ridley this, Ridley that, this, that, and the other." Mate, I'm telling you, for 80 minutes, that guy had an exceptional.
He was great. Yeah. There was nothing really, because I mean, the biggest compliment you can give to a referee generally, which is it's a bit shit if you're a ref, but if you've got nothing really to say about the ref, then they've done a phenomenal job, because there's been nothing to bitch and moan about. But yeah, that last call, I feel like if it was Nigel, who had however many test caps he had refereeing at international level, he probably just stops things and says, "All right, let's just do that again."
I think so, and you also making a rod for your own back to a lesser or greater extent, because I don't think any Frenchman could have moaned that you can. And let's be honest, it isn't the ball falling off the tee, because I've seen that happen before, and you have to do that within the auspices of the shot clock. But the fact was that 2 or 3 French players went for the charge down, and that is illegal. Now, somebody actually, I can't remember, Andrew McKenna, talk radio broadcaster, good friend of mine. Andrew was on Twitter the other day, and he said, "I cannot understand why rugby shoots itself in the foot. Why are there 3 different laws for this? Why don't you just make one law that you can charge or you can't, right? Just keep one law for that whole of that kicking scenario." Totally right. I mean, why have 3 different? It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
When you watch rugby with someone who's never followed rugby, that's the kind of thing that you feel the pain trying to explain it when they ask, "Oh, why are they charging?" "Oh, because it's a conversion, they're allowed to charge." And then later on, "Why aren't they charging?" "Oh, well, that's because apparently they're not allowed to charge for that one, but they are allowed to charge for that one." It doesn't. It's a bit naff, isn't it?
Doesn't sit well. Anyway,
what have you got lined up in your writing schedule? I mean, apart from sitting on the Frans Malherbe story, or is it kind of top secret that we can't know?
Oh no, we'll get that one out. What have I got lined up? I've been doing quite a bit with the England A side this week. Had a really nice catch up with Tommy Pearson, the young England flank, who was exceptional against Portugal. Very, very happy about that England A concept moving forward. It was a shame Portugal weren't a little bit more competitive, but that was down to sheer schedule workload, and people shouldn't lose sight that they played a test match 3 or 4 days previously that was a World Cup qualifier. So there is that. Next week, so I'm doing back-to-backs next week. I've got the England-Ireland game, which unfortunately is quite a late kickoff, and then tanking over to Cardiff to watch Wales-France on the Sunday and to work Wales-France. I've got a couple of lovely trips coming on. Been sent to Toulon to cover Toulon-Toulouse, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. With my love of French rugby, I've got a couple of friends within those 2 clubs, people I've worked with a number of times. I'm really looking forward to going and experiencing their hospitality, their professional hospitality. And on a personal level, I'm also, April the 4th, I'm very, very honoured that I've been asked to skipper the MCC Cricket on their overseas tour. We go out April the 4th to Gibraltar in Spain, and I'm leading a motley crew of 19. So of my venerable old age. So I've been cricket training twice a week to try and get some flab off me and hit a few out the middle of the bat.
Goodness gracious me, man. You are certainly a very busy chap, but it sounds good. We're looking forward to that. Enjoy your cricket, and let us know when the Malherbe article finally drops, because like I said, Yeah, I'm very keen. I'm very keen to have a read of that one because genuinely one of my favorite players.
Yeah. I will tell you this: when I sent, if I'm allowed to swear on the channel, when the plane was taxiing, I sent him a text just saying we got bloody carjacked on the way to the airport. Twitch's response was, "Fuck, man! If I'll find them, I'll fuck them up for you." And and all I'll say is, I'd be pretty scared if Malherbe took issue with it.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna carjack that guy anyway.
I'll come up for you.
Oh, what a top man. Top man. All right, James, man, it was a pleasure to have you on. We'll have to do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Mark.
All right, take care.